Om Namo Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Brahmovacha Yatro Yatrodhyata Kshititaloddharanaya Bibhrat Kraudim Tanum Sakalayagyamayim Anantaha Antarmaharnava Upagatamadi Tam Damshayadrimiva Vajradharo Dadara.
Son of the universe called Garbhodaka. The first demon, Hiranyakasha, appeared, and the Lord pierced him with his tusk.
Text 2. Jato rucher ajanayat suyaman suyagya akuti sunuramarana dakshinayam lokatayasya mahatim aharadyadartim swayam bhuve namanuna harirityanuktaha.
The Prajapati first begot Suyajana in the womb of his wife Akuti, and then Suyajana begot demigods headed by Suyama in the womb of his wife Dakshina. Suyajana and as the Indradeva diminished very great miseries in the three planetary systems, upper, lower, and intermediate. And because he sought to diminish the miseries of the universe, he was later called Hari by the great father of mankind, namely Swayambhuva Manu.
Text 3. Jagye chakardamagrihe dvijadevahutyam stribhi samam navabhiratmagatim swamatre ucheyayatmashamalam gunasangapankam asmin vidhuya kapilasya gatim prapede.
The Lord then appeared as a Kapila incarnation, being the son of the Prajapati Brahmana Kardama and his wife Devahuti, along with his 9 other women, sisters. He spoke to his mother about self-realization, by which, in that very lifetime, she became fully cleansed of the mud of the material modes and thereby achieved liberation, the path of Kapila.
Text 4. Atrerapathyamabhikankshata ahatushto datto mayahamiti yad bhagavan sadattaha yat pada pankaja paraga pavitra deha yogadhima purubhayim yaduhai hayadya.
The great sage Atri prayed for offspring, and the Lord, being satisfied with him, promised to incarnate as Atri's son, Datta, the son of Atri, and by the grace of the lotus feet of the Lord, many Yadus, Hayayas, etc. became so purified that they obtained both material and spiritual blessings.
Text 5. Taptam tapo vividharto loka shishrikshayame ado sanat swatapasah sachatu sano bhut prakalpa samplava vinashtamihatma tattvam samyak jagada munayo yadachakshatatman.
To create different planetary systems, I had to undergo austerities and penance, and the Lord, thus being pleased with me, incarnated in 4 sanas, Sanaka, Sanatkumar, Sanandana, and Sanatana. In the previous creation, the spiritual truth was devastated, but the four sanas explained it so nicely that the truth at once became clearly perceived by the sages.
Text 6. Dharmasya daksha duhita yajanishtamurtyam narayano nara iti swatapah prabhavaha drishtvatmano bhagavato niyamavalopam devyastvananga pritana ghatitum nashekuha.
To exhibit his personal way of austerity and penance, he appeared in twin forms of Narayan and Nara in the form of Murti, the son of Dharma and the daughter of Daksha. Celestial beauties, the companions of Cupid went to try to break his vow, but they were unsuccessful, for they saw that many beauties like them were emanating from him, the personality of Godhead.
Text 7. Kamam dahanti kritino nanurosha drishtya rosham dahantu mutatena dahantya sahyam soyam yadantaramalam pravishan bibheti kamah katham nu punarasya manah shayeta.
Great solvers like Lord Shiva can, by their wrathful glances, overcome lust and vanquish him. Yet they cannot be free from the overwhelming effects of their own wrath. Such wrath can never enter into the hearts of him, the Lord, who is above all this. So how can lust take shelter in his mind?
Text 8. Vidha sapatnyudita pratibhiranti ragyo balo pisan upagatas-tapasevanani tasma adadruvagatim grinate prasanno divyastuvanti munayo yaduparyadhastat.
Being insulted by sharp words spoken by the co-wife of the king, even in his presence, Prince Durva, though only a boy, took to severe penances in the forest, and the Lord, being satisfied by his prayer, awarded him the Dhruva planet, which is worshipped by great sages both upwards and downwards.
Text 9. Yadvenamutpathagatam dvijavakyavajra nishplushtapurushabhagam niraye patantam tradvarthito jagati putra padam chalebhe dugdha vasuni vasudha sakalanyayena.
Maharaja Vina went astray from the path of righteousness, and the Brahmins chastised him by the thunderbolt curse. By this, King Vena was burned with his good deeds and opulence and was en route to hell. The Lord, by his causeless mercy, descended as his son by the name of Prutu, delivered a condemned King Vina from hell, and exploited the earth by throwing all kinds of crops as produce.
Text 10. Nabherasa vrishabha asa sudevi sunur yo vai chachara samadrikcha dadyogacharyam yat paramahamsya marishaya padam manananti swastha prashanta karana parimukta sangaha.
The Lord appeared as the son of Sudevi, the wife of King Nabi, and was known as Rasapadeva. He performed materialistic yoga to equibalance the mind. This stage is also accepted as the highest perfectional situation of liberation. Within one is situated in one's self and is completely satisfied.
Text 11. Sat त्रय ममास भगवान् हयशीरशाथो साक्षात् स यज्ञपुरुषस्तपनीयवर्णः छन्दोमयो मखमयोऽखिलदेवतात्मा वाचो बभूवुरुषति श्वसतोऽस्य नस्तः.
The Lord appeared as Hayagriva incarnation in the sacrifice performed by me, Brahma. He is the personified sacrifices, and the hue of his body is golden. He is personified Vedas as well, and the super soul of all demigods. When he breathes, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns come out of his nostrils.
Text 12. Matsyo yuganta samaye manunopalabdhaha kshoni mayo nikhila jiva nikaya ketaha visramsitanurubhaye salile mukhanme adaya tatra vijahara haveda margan.
At the end of the millennium, the would-be Vaivashvatamanu of the name Satyavarta would see that the Lord of in the fish carnation is the shelter of all kinds of living entities, up to those in the earthly planet. Because of my fear of the vast water at the end of the millennium, the Vedas come out of my Brahma's mouth, and the Lord enjoys those vast waters and protects the Vedas.
Text 13. Kshirodadhavamaradanavayuthapanam unmatmatam amritalabdhaya adidevaha prishtena kachapavapurvidadhara gotram nidrakshanodraparivarta kanduha.
The primeval Lord then assumed the tortoise incarnation in order to serve as a resting place, pivot for the Mandara mountain, which was acting as churning rod. The demigods and demons were churning the ocean of milk with the Mandara mountain in order to extract nectar. The mountain moved back and forth, scratching the back of Lord Tortoise, who, while partially sleeping, was experiencing an itching sensation.
Text 14. Traipishtapurubhayaha sanrishingarupam kridva brahmad prukutidamshra karalavaktram daityendra gadayabhipatantamarad uro nipatya vidadara nakhai sfurantam.
The personality of Godhead assumed the incarnation of Narasimhadev in order to vanquish the great fears of the demigod. He killed the king of demons, Hiranyakashipu, who challenged the Lord with a club in his hand. By placing the demon on his thighs and piercing him with his nails, rolling his eyebrows in anger and showing his fearful teeth and mouth.
Text 15. Antah sarasyurubalena pade grihito grahena yuttha patirambujahasta arthaha ahedamadi purushakhila lokanatha tirtha shravaha shravana mangala namadhe.
The leader of elephants, whose leg was attacked in the river by the crocodile of superior strength, was much aggrieved. Taking a lotus flower in his trunk, he addressed the Lord, saying, O original enjoyer, the Lord of the universe, O deliverer, as famous as place of pilgrimage, all are purified simply by hearing your holy name, which is worthy to be chanted.
Text 16. Shrudva haristamaranathinem aprameyash Chakrayudha patagaraja bhujadhiruddhaha Chakrena nakravadanam vinipatya tasmad Dhaste pragrihya bhagavan Ara.
The personality of Godhead, after hearing the elephant's plea, felt that the elephant needed his immediate help, for he was in great distress. Thus at once the Lord appeared there on the wings of the king of bird, Garuda, fully equipped with his weapon, the wheel chakra. With the wheel, he cut to pieces the mouth of the crocodile to save the elephant, and he delivered the elephant by lifting him by his trunk. Sorry.
Text 17. Jayan gunair avarajopyadite sutanam lokan vichakrama imanya dathadhiyakyaha ksham vamanena jagrihe tripadachalena yachnam rite phaticharan prabhubhir nachalyaha.
The Lord, although transcendental to all material modes, still surpassed all the qualities of the sons of Aditi, known as Aditya. The Lord appeared as the youngest son of Aditi, and because he surpassed all the planets of the universe, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On the pretense of asking for the measurement of 3 footsteps of land, he took away all the lands of Bali Maharaja. He asked simply because without begging, no authority can take one's rightful possession.
Text 18. Nartho baler ayamurukkrama shaucham apah shikhadritavato vibudha pipatyam yo vai pratishrutam ritena chikirshadanyad atmanamanga manasa haraye bhimene.
Bali Maharaj, who put his head, the water washed away. Bali Maharaj, who put on his head the water washed from the lotus feet of the Lord, did not think of anything beside his promise, in spite of being forbidden by his spiritual master. The king dedicated his own personal body to fulfill the measurement of the Lord's third step. For such a personality, even the kingdom of heaven, which he conquered by his strength, was no value. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Sorry for my mistakes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hari Prabhu and Brenda Devi, for your wonderful recitation. Welcome, dear devotees, to today's chat session. We continue from the second canto, 7th chapter entitled Schedule Incarnations for Specific Functions. And today we are scheduled to discuss text number 4 and 5. So we'll start off as we normally do with the Mangala Charanam prayers. Please feel free to join in via unmuted mics. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Malitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste. Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusita Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vastucha Deshatadine. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, share my screen. So today we'll be carrying on. So who's speaking this verse? Anyone else who's speaking this verse?
Brahma ji.
Yes, Lord Brahma. And who's he speaking it to? Sri Narada. If we can recall this chapter, Parikshit Maharaj has so many questions to Shukdev Goswami. And Shukdev Goswami said, actually, all of the questions you are asking me was also asked previously by Sri Narad to his father and Guru, Lord Brahma. That's called the Narad Brahma Samvad. So I will answer the questions by repeating or reciting that conversation. Okay. Atre rapacham abhikan sata avutushto dato mayam iti yat bhagavan sai dataha yat pada pankaja paraga pavitra deha yoghartim apur upayim yaduhai yad yaha. So I won't do the word for word translation synonyms. I'll go straight to the translation. So translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great sage Atri prayed for offspring, and the Lord, being satisfied with him, promised to incarnate as Atri's son, Dattatreya. Datta, the son of Atri. And by the grace of the lotus feet of the Lord, many Yadus, Hayas, etc. became so purified that they obtained both material and spiritual blessings. Or what? Transcendental relations between the personality of Godhead and the living entities are eternally established in 5 different affectionate humors, which are known as Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. The sage Atri was related with the Lord in the affectionate Vatsalya humor, and therefore, as a result of his devotional perfection, he was inclined to have the personality of Godhead as his son. The Lord accepted his prayer, and he gave himself as the son of Atri. Such a relation of sonhood between the Lord and his pure devotees can be cited in many instances. And because the Lord is unlimited, he has an unlimited number of father devotees. Factually, the Lord is the father of all living entities. But out of transcendental affection and love between the Lord and his devotees, the Lord takes more pleasure in becoming the son of a devotee than in becoming one's father. The father actually serves the son, whereas the son only demands all sorts of services from the father. Therefore, a pure devotee who is always inclined to serve the Lord wants him as the son and not as the father. The Lord also accepts such service from the devotee, and thus the devotee becomes more than the Lord. The impersonalists desire to become one with the Supreme, but the devotee becomes more than the Lord, surpassing the desire of the greatest monist. Parents and other relatives of the Lord achieve all mystic opulences automatically because of their intimate relationship with the Lord. Such opulences include all details of material enjoyment, salvation, and mystic powers. Therefore, the devotee of the Lord does not seek them separately, wasting his valuable time in life. The valuable time of one's life must therefore be fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Then other desirable achievements are automatically gained. But even after obtaining such achievements, one should be on guard against the pitfall of offenses at the feet of the devotees. The vivid example is Haihaya, who achieved all such perfection in devotional service, but because of his offense at the feet of a devotee, was killed by Lord Parashuram. The Lord became the son of the great of sage Atri and became known as Dattatreya. So many different incarnations of the Lord are being described. Guna, Leela, Manvantar, Avesh, Vibhuti, so many different incarnations the Lord has. So in this particular verse, this particular incarnation of the Lord as Dattatreya is being described. And it is being explained here in this verse a few reasons that the Lord appeared and some of his pastimes. And first and foremost, and Srila Prabhupada focuses his, the greatest part of his purport on this reason, primary reason. And Prabhupada talks about Atri Rishi, one of the great sages. He desired to have the Lord as offspring. So in general religion, we always see God as Father, but the devotees, they become the Father of God. Now, one may ask the question, why would this be so? Why would anyone desire to be the Father of God? And it comes back to the main reason of the desire of a devotee. The desire of a devotee is to render service to the Lord. The devotee's constant desire is to give pleasure to the Lord. So the devotee wants to place himself or herself in a situation where they can render the most service and the best service and very intimate service to Krishna. This is the nature of devotee. So when the Lord is Father, the position of Father generally is that the Father is rendering more service to the child than the child is rendering service to the Father. That is something we all have experience of. So That, in one sense, for a devotee is not the best, because the devotee doesn't want to take service from the Lord. The devotee wants to give service. That's the life of a devotee, to always give service to Krishna. So the devotee sometimes has this desire, let me become parent of Krishna, mother of Krishna, father of Krishna. And then I can render so much of service to Krishna, not take service. Krishna is my father. Oh, Father, give me this, give me that. So Atri Rishi was in this mood. And the Lord, it is said, he satisfies the desires of his devotees. And Krishna very much likes to satisfy the desires of his devotees. So when the devotee has this particular inclination, this particular desire, then Krishna steps in and satisfies it. And in this instant, Krishna stepped in and became the son as Dattatreya. As Prabhupada says, Atreya, the son of Atri. Datta, Atreya, the son of Atri. So he got named just like he is named as Nanda Nandan. He is the son of Nanda Maharaj. Yashoda Nandan. He's the son of Mother Yashoda. So Datta Treya, the son of Atri, Dattatreya. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the incarnation of Dattatreya is described in a few places. I'll just share with you some verses, and then we should move on to the next part. So let me see. Yes, yeah, there's a few verses. So we've been studying the first canto already, and if you still can remember, in the 11th verse of the 3rd chapter, there was description, and there not only the father is described, but mother too. The 6th incarnation of the Purusha was the son of the sage Atri. He was born from the womb of Anusuya, who prayed for an incarnation. He spoke on the subject of transcendence to Alarka, Prahlada, and others, Yayu and Haya. So in this verse, we see the mother being mentioned. The verse we just discussed, text number 5, son of the Atri Rishi. But here also, the description is given. He was born in the womb of Ansuya. And here it was saying, mother also prayed. So father prayed and mother prayed. And the Lord, satisfying both mother and father, he appeared. And description is given here that he spoke, being an incarnation of the Lord speaks always transcendental knowledge, and he imparted this transcendental knowledge to Alarka, Prahlada, and others. Yadu and Hahaya is mentioned. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about how Hahaya was committed an offense to a devotee. He was cursed, but he was freed from that curse by the Lord. He was freed from the curse by the Lord. Then again, it's mentioned in the 4th canto, is mentioned again, 1st chapter, verse number 15. There it says, Anasuya, the wife of Atri Muni, gave birth to 3 very famous sons, Soma, Dattatreya, and Durvasa, were partial representations of Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma. Soma was a partial representation of Lord Brahma. Dattatreya was a partial representation of Lord Vishnu. and Durvasa was a partial representation of Lord Shiva. So Dattatreya had some brothers, Soma and Durvasa. Therefore, sometimes we different. Sometimes some people say that Dattatreya was a combined incarnation of Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. But Bhagavatam is saying no, Dattatreya was the partial representation of Vishnu. Durvasa was a partial representation of Lord Shiva. And Soma was a partial representation of Lord Brahma. And then in the 11th canto, it is described there, this particular verse is talking about Dattatreya enlightening Yadu. It is mentioned that the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, having thus spoken to King Yadu, the wise Brahmana accepted obeisances and worship from the king and felt pleased with him. Then bidding farewell, he left exactly as he had come. So here it is described, and it is mentioned here that this verse is quoted in the purport by disciples of Srila Prabhupada, that Dattatreya spoke to Yadu. What's interesting, a good portion of the 11th canto is about the Avadut Brahmana. Also, there's description about the Avadut Brahmana who accepted 24 gurus. So here it is confirmed that according to Sridhar Swami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that the Avadut Brahmana, he was Dattatreya. He was the personality of Godhead also. So that's interesting. So we shall move on now to the next verse we are meant to be discussing today, which is text number 5. How are we doing for time? Okay. Taptam tapo vivida loka shishrikshaya me ado sanat svatapasa chatushanobhyut prakalpasam lava vinastam yata tattvam samyak jagata munayo yada aja satatmam. Translation: to create different planetary systems, I had to undergo austerities and penance. And the Lord, thus being pleased with me, incarnated in 4 sanas: Sanaka, Sanat Kumara, Sanandana, and Sanatana. In the previous creation, the spiritual truth was devastated, but the 4 sanas explained it so nicely, the truth at once became clearly perceived by the sages. Okay, for the interest of time, I'll just read the purport. The Vishnu Sahasranam prayers mention the Lord's name as Sanat and Sanatana Tama. The Lord and the living entities are both qualitatively Sanatana, or eternal, but the Lord is Sanatana Tama, or the eternal in the superlative degree. The living entities are positively Sanatana, but not superlatively, because the living entities are apt to fall to the atmosphere of non-eternity. Therefore, the living entities are quantitatively different from the superlative Sanatana, the Lord. The word Son is also used in the sense of charity. Therefore, when everything is given up in charity unto the Lord reciprocates by giving himself unto the devotees. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4:11, Ye yatamam prapachyante. Brahmaji wanted to create the whole cosmic situation as it was in the previous millennium. And because in the last devastation, knowledge of the absolute truth was altogether erased from the universe, he desired that the same knowledge can be renovated. Otherwise, there would be no meaning in the creation. Because transcendental knowledge is a prime necessity, the ever-conditioned souls are given a chance for liberation in every millennium of creation. This mission of Brahmaji was fulfilled by the grace of the Lord when the four sanas, namely Sanaka, Sanat Kumara, Sanandana, and Sanatana, appeared as his four sons. These four sanas were incarnations of the knowledge of the Supreme Lord, and as such they explained transcendental knowledge so explicitly that all the sages could at once assimilate this knowledge without the least difficulty. By following in the footsteps of the four Kumaras, one can at once see the Supreme Personality of Godhead within oneself. So yeah, it's being explained that Lord Brahma, at the dawn of the next millennium, he wanted to create planetary systems, and he said he underwent austerities and penances. And he said the Lord, being pleased with him, incarnated in the four sanas. So it is explained that Lord Brahma, he was very keen that transcendental knowledge be disseminated in the creation. As explained here, in the previous creation, the spiritual truth, transcendental knowledge was devastated. So it is explained that Lord Brahma desiring this, the Lord manifested. And Prabhupada says in the purport, they were incarnations of the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. The four Kumaras are incarnations of the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. And it is explained that the four Kumaras, when they appeared, they were concerned that they may fall into Maya. And generally one falls into Maya more deeply when one gets into householder life and procreation and so on. So they asked for Lord Brahma for the benediction that they will not grow any older than 5 years of age. So Lord Brahma was not particularly pleased, but he granted them that boon. And that part of him which was angry, that anger manifested through his forehead as Rudra. Therefore, it is mentioned in the Shastra, we see in different places, that Lord Shiva is sometimes referred to as the younger brother of the Kumaras, or the Kumaras are the elder brother of Lord Shiva or Rudra. So the four Kumaras, they have their own sampradaya called the Kumara Sampradaya. We know that is the Brahma Sampradaya, the Sri Sampradaya, Brahma Sampradaya, Sri Sampradaya, the Kumara Sampradaya, and my mind's gone blank now. Which is the fourth one? Forgot. Brahma, or Rudra, yeah. Brahma, Rudra, Kumara, Sampradayas.
It's a Shri Sampradaya,
Sri
is it?
Sampradaya, Lakshmi Sampradaya. Yes.
Lakshmi, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. So they disseminated a spiritual knowledge, and it is said that they were just not propagating spiritual knowledge, but they were doing it so nicely. When spiritual knowledge is explained very nicely, explaining nicely means in a very palatable way, in a way that they explain it that one can relate to it. Then spiritual knowledge is transmitted. When there's, there's purity, and there's a nice explanation. Then spiritual knowledge. So the Kumaras, they were disseminated the spiritual knowledge, and therefore we have what is known as the Kumara Sampradaya, one of the bona fide Vaishnava Sampradayas. Now we read also more about the Kumaras in the 4th canto, 17th chapter. And in that chapter, there's a very nice description about Prithu Maharaj. What was it, the 17th chapter? Just let me have a look. I was reading it earlier. So, chapter is that? Oh, sorry, the 22nd chapter. If you go read the 22nd chapter of the 4th canto, there's a very, very nice description of how Prithu Maharaj meets the Kumaras. Prithu Maharaj, we know he was also an incarnation of the Lord. He was the king of the entire planet. And in the Bhagavatam, this 22nd chapter, there's nice teachings that the Kumaras give to Prithu Maharaj. And it's very instructive and relevant also. There is description in this chapter how once Prithu Maharaj saw these, the 4 Kumaras approaching him, and in great joy, in great happiness, he approached them. He bathed their feet, and then he praised them. And this particular chapter is very instructive because it tells us how to receive saintly personalities. And then he asks a very relevant question. And his question, basically, paraphrased, says, I am a householder. I am so caught up in household life. I am so caught up in the business that comes with being a king. How can I achieve spiritual perfection? He asked this question to the Kumaras. And the Kumaras, being the Kumaras, the Mahajans, they explained to Prithu Maharaj about how one can overcome lust, how one can become detached. And then he speaks about different ways. He speaks about Jnana Mishra Bhakti. And eventually they speak about pure devotional service. They give very, very nice instructions about worshipping the Lord, serving Lord Vasudeva. How through this process of surrendering to the Lord, one can cross samsara with the boat of the Lord Lotus feet. And then Prithu Maharaj, at the end of this chapter, he offers very nice prayers to the Kumaras. So, in keeping with this particular verse, if you want to have greater meditation on the words of the Kumaras, those words that we find throughout the Vedas and the Srimad Bhagavatam, please read chapter number 22 of the 4th canto, and also read the verses how Maharaj Prithu received them, how Maharaj Prithu praised them. Hare Krishna. So I'll stop here. It's just after 8:30. So we'll take any questions, comments, reflections that anyone may have. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Pranam, Prabhu.
Pranam.
I just wanted to ask you a question. Those who have entered the Grahastha life, for them, is pure devotional service possible?
Very much so.
Mhm.
We have to understand firstly what is pure devotional service. And Srila Rupa Goswami has given us the definition of pure devotional service. You know that definition, Mataji?
Pure devotional service is to I don't know. It's not like sadhana, or it's not something like that. It's
Yeah, Srila Rupa Goswami defines pure devotional service. That's the Paribhasa Sutra of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Prabhupada has translated as Nectar of Devotion. Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana
yeah,
Karmadi Anuvrita. You know that verse?
yeah.
One should make zero
Yeah.
all desires for karma,
Yeah.
jnana, and yoga.
Mm-hmm.
One should serve the Lord continuously in a favorable mood as the Lord desires. So one can be a householder, and many of our great acharyas, particularly more recently Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, showed how it's possible. So in any situation in life, in any vana, in any ashram, if one serves the Lord with any desire for fruit of result, any desire for liberation, any desire for yogic siddhis, one does in a continuous mood, in a favorable mood, as Krishna desires, which we find out from our shastras, then yes, pure devotional service is possible for the householders. Not possible, but it's integral to the life of householders too.
Yeah, but like the householders, they are quite busy with the children, with the job, with the responsibility of the children, all that. In the midst of all that, how can they put this pure devotional service in place as well?
It's by consciousness, Mataji.
Okay.
You know, by chanting the Maha Mantra, we develop a consciousness of devotion. So we start to see every action, every activity as a devotional activity.
Mm,
That these children are devotees of Krishna, so I'm serving the children, so I'm doing devotional service. I'm cooking and feeding the family, that's devotional service. My family is devotees, so I'm serving devotees. My home is a temple of Krishna, so I'm cleaning the house, I'm cleaning the temple of Krishna. So by changing our consciousness, we don't see anything separate from Krishna.
mhm.
We see everything linked with Krishna, and then everything becomes devotional service.
Okay.
Does it make
Mm.
sense?
Yes, Prabhu. It's just that I had a conversation with another devotee at one time, and I said the same thing, that if you enter a Grahastha life, you have made a promise to another person, then you start a family life. So you can't say like halfway through that I'm sorry, but I want to now leave the Grahastha life and I want to go towards just um, devotion, leave the Grahastha life, leave that. I am not the doer. Krishna takes care of everybody, she was saying. You are not the doer, so you must not say I should take responsibility of the family. Krishna takes care of everybody. So then it was just like, how can you enter a Grahastha life and then say, I am not the doer, Krishna takes care of everyone, and I just go and start my devotional service? It was just confusing me.
Yeah. I think they haven't understand the Bhakti Siddhanta, the philosophy of Bhakti.
Hmm.
So that person is seeing renunciation and Bhakti as two separate
Yeah.
items or entities.
Okay.
But that's not what our Bhakti teachings teach us.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Okay. Just seeing all your names here. Great devotees of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Hare Krishna, may I ask something related to that, please?
Yeah, sure.
So this is again based on a conversation, of course, at in a work environment. So say, for example, we'd say, okay, like, you know, start, if one starts their working day with a quick, you know, with a short prayer in the morning that, you know, whatever I do, I dedicate and offer this to the Lord. And yet in professional life, it always happens that sometimes, you know, people misunderstand each other, or things are not going the way you'd want them to or expect them to. And when these situations happen, how should one kind of, you know, deal with them? Because not everybody believes that, you know, there might be something good that may come out of it later. Maybe it's a temporary, you know, not I wouldn't even call it a struggle, but, you know, temporary ups and downs. And how can you then explain to them that, you know, it is just part of, I don't know, maybe life, or maybe something better will happen?
Yeah, when someone is covered very deeply with matter, covered over by matter, sometimes it's very hard to extricate their thinking and their intelligence from it. But we can give them transcendental knowledge, is like very powerful. You know, sometimes transcendental knowledge is compared to a sword. Sometimes it's compared to fire that burns everything. It's compared to water that extinguishes the fire of ignorance. So we can give them transcendental knowledge. You know, you can simply say that, you know, don't be too caught up by this. You know, we are just passing through. This whole material existence is like a dream. You know, don't take it too seriously. So we can explain some transcendental knowledge to them, and maybe if they get a little bit of that. Generally, we find that when you speak transcendental knowledge, it's like a soothing balm. Even if they're not able to fully accept or understand, at least it gives them some level of relief from material distress. You know, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, Pavitram Idam Uttamam, that this knowledge is the highest knowledge, and it is purifying. It's the topmost knowledge. So we can try to share some of the transcendental knowledge that this is all temporary, we're only passing through. It's like a dream. Nobody gets caught up by a dream, and so on.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, I think there's no other question. Hare Krishna, Sailash Prabhu.
I just thought it might be worthwhile you expanding on a little bit and explaining to the previous lady that there's the way Prabhupada and our Bhakti movement works is that a Grihastha that is not got Krishna at the center is a Grihamedi, not a Grihastha. In our ashram system, Krishna is supposed to be at the center in every ashram, regardless of which ashram you're in. So you might just want to expand on that, Prabhu, and explain that a little bit better. You'll be far more eloquent than me.
I'd like to hear your explanation, Prabhu. Why don't you share your realization? You're a householder. You've been practicing Krishna consciousness for a long time. You worship your deities at home. So please share.
So in layman terms, I'll put it in layman terms, it might be easier. So Prabhupada explains in many purports that the essential difference in Grihastha, obviously we have responsibilities, we have family responsibilities, we have job responsibilities, also all sorts. And to be in Krishna consciousness whilst being in Grihastha is actually harder than being a sannyasi, he explains in one or two purports. So it's actually greater position, not greater, you know what I'm saying, in relative terms, it is a much more difficult task to remain fully engrossed in Krishna consciousness in Grihastha. But to do it successfully is a very successful ashram to be in. We have responsibility to have children means to bring them up in Krishna consciousness. To be in a job means to be using our money and Lakshmi for the purpose of Krishna. So we can be doing all material things that any other normal Grihastha would be doing, but we're effectively Krishnizing that by effectively offering that for the purposes of Krishna's pleasure. Those that are in Grihastha ashram without using any Krishna consciousness in their life are in a, what Prabhupada explains is as a Grihamedis. They're basically in a completely materially looped life where they're going from one sense gratification to the other. I won't go into graphic details of how he explains it. It's quite graphic how Prabhupada explains it. But so if you are trying to be in Grihastha ashram without putting Krishna firmly at the center, actually we're not in we're not in the proper Grihastha ashram. We're actually Grihamedis. So it is important to bring Krishna into the center. Bringing Krishna, your children up in Krishna consciousness, bringing your wife into Krishna consciousness. And if those tasks are difficult, then at least to preserve your own Krishna consciousness while still carrying out your duties. You mustn't discard your duties, and you mustn't shy away from those responsibilities, whereas ashram does have responsibilities. So one can't leave those responsibilities behind unless you're forced to. Like Prabhupada himself had to, at some point, took Vanaprastha and then effectively sannyas. That was my layman explanation. Prabhupada probably fumbled around a bit, so you can correct all those mistakes I made and give a much more nicer veneer to it.
Thank you. It was very one. I just want to make one point that it's all about consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada said, you know, and obviously we all have from personal experience, to maintain a consciousness of this is service to Krishna. It's not easy because we get roped into, we get pulled by identifying ourselves as the body, seeing, you know, our family, our assets as belonging to us. But Prabhupada said if we sincerely chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every single day, and if possible in the early morning, then for the rest of the day, maintaining this consciousness that everything belongs to Krishna, everything is Krishna, then that's not so difficult. So the practical, the very powerful way that's been given by Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas is the chanting of the holy name. This holy name will maintain this consciousness that we need, so we do not, you know, shift from Grihastha to Grihamedi. Thank you. Okay, we'll close today. Thank you so much for your participation and your attendance. All glories to your service. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa
Kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo
Ananta Kori
namaha.
Vaishnava Vrinda ki
Ki jai.
Prabhupada ki
Ki
jai.
jai.
Om Premanande Hari.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.